I've lived in silence for 25 years, but my mind has never been quiet. My name is Yubin, and I haven't spoken a single word since the day I was born. Not because I can't hear, I hear everything, every whisper, every cruel comment, every pitying sigh. I just can't speak. The doctors never found a reason. My vocal cords are fine, my brain is fine, everything is supposedly fine. But the words that form so easily in my mind die somewhere between my thoughts and my lips. My beta father didn't care about medical explanations. To him I was simply defective. Bad luck. A cursed child who would bring shame to his family name. I was barely 3 months old when he threw us out, me and my Omega father, Kim Jae. I don't remember that day of course, but Appa has told me the story enough times that it feels like a memory. The rain. The suitcase. My father's face, cold and unmoved as he closed the door on us forever. You were so small, Appa always says, his eyes distant. I wrapped you in my coat and promised you that we'd be okay. That I'd make sure you were okay. And he did. For 25 years he worked 2, sometimes 3 jobs. He learned sign language and taught it to me as soon as my little hands could form the shapes. He never made me feel broken, never made me feel less than. When other kids' parents whispered about the mute Omega child, Appa held his head high and held my hand tighter. I graduated top of my class. Business degree honors. I learned to read lips so well I could follow conversations across a crowded room. I mastered written Korean, English, even Japanese. I made myself invaluable, undeniable. And still, people assumed I was stupid. That's the thing about being mute in a world that values voices. People think silence equals emptiness. They talk over you, about you, around you as if you're not even there. As if you can't understand every poisonous word. I learned early on. If you can't speak, you have to make yourself heard in other ways. So I did. JK Enterprises occupied 40 floors of one of Seoul's most prestigious buildings. I worked on the 32nd floor in the marketing department, a mid-level position that I'd earned through sheer competence and stubborn determination. My desk was by the window, which I'd claimed on my first day by arriving an hour early. Natural light was non-negotiable. I needed to see people's faces clearly to read their lips. Most of my colleagues had learned to work with me. We communicated through email, text messages, and when necessary my quick sign language paired with my notepad. I was efficient, creative, and I met every deadline. That should have been enough. But there's always someone who mistakes difference for weakness. Did you even understand the assignment, or should I draw you pictures? I looked up from my computer to find Park Min-suk looming over my desk. He was one of the senior team members, an alpha who seemed to think his designation meant he could treat others like dirt. His cologne was overwhelming, that aggressive alpha scent that some men wore like a weapon. I raised an eyebrow and pointed to my screen, where the completed project was clearly displayed, formatted perfectly 2 days before the deadline. His face reddened. Don't give me that look. You think you're so smart? You're just a defective Omega who got lucky. My hands moved before I could stop them, sharp and quick. And you're an asshole with a fragile ego. At least my condition isn't terminal. He couldn't understand sign language of course, but my expression must have conveyed enough. His face went purple. What did you just sign? Are you insulting me? I smiled sweetly and typed on my phone, showing him the screen. I was just saying how much I appreciate your feedback. The lie was obvious. His jaw clenched, but before he could respond, our team leader called for a meeting. I gathered my tablet and walked past him, making sure to bump his shoulder just hard enough to make my point. Petty? Maybe. Satisfying? Absolutely. But Min-suk wasn't the type to let things go. Over the next week he escalated. Accidentally deleting my files. Taking credit for my ideas in meetings. Spreading rumors that I was getting special treatment because of my disability. I documented everything. Screenshots, email chains, witnesses. I wasn't just going to endure it, I was building a case. The breaking point came on a Friday afternoon. I'd been working on a major campaign proposal for 2 weeks. The presentation was Monday morning, and I'd just finished the final revisions when Min-suk appeared at my desk with his coffee. Hey mute boy. Mr. Kong wants to see your project. Mr. Kong was our department director. I frowned, he hadn't mentioned wanting to review it. But I nodded and saved my work, attaching it to an email. Min-suk watched me with a smirk that made my skin crawl. No. He wants to see it now. On your computer. Something felt wrong, but I stood, gesturing for him to lead the way. As soon as I was out of sight of my desk, I heard the unmistakable sound of keys typing. I ran back to find Min-suk at my computer, his fingers flying across my keyboard. White-hot rage flooded through me. I grabbed his wrist and yanked him away from my desk, my other hand flying through signs so fast they blurred. Touch my work again and I'll break every finger on your hand, you pathetic, insecure piece of shit. Get your hands off me. He shoved me hard and I stumbled backward into my chair. You can't even talk and you think you can threaten me? Do you know what I could do to you? A crowd was forming. I could see phones coming out, recording. My heart pounded, but I forced myself to stay calm. I pulled out my phone and typed, "You just corrupted 2 weeks of work. I have cameras on my desk. I have proof." His face went pale, then red again. "You're lying. You're just trying to get me in trouble because you're a vindictive little." What is going on here? The department director, Mr. Kong, had arrived. He looked between us, his expression stormy. Min-suk immediately straightened, putting on a concerned face. "Sir, Yubin attacked me. I think the stress is getting to him. You know how sensitive Omegas can be, and with his condition." I wanted to throw my computer at his face. Instead, I quickly typed out what happened and showed Mr. Kong my phone. The director read it, his frown deepening. Then he looked at my desk, where my small security camera was clearly visible, its red light blinking. "Is that camera recording?" I nodded and pulled up the footage on my phone. The timestamp, the typing, everything. Mr. Kong watched in silence, then turned to Min-suk. "You're suspended pending investigation." "Now." "But sir." "Now." As Min-suk left, shooting me a look of pure hatred, Mr. Kong sighed. "Yubin, I apologize. This should never have happened. Can you recover the files?" I nodded. I had backups of everything. I wasn't stupid. "Good. Go home early today. Monday morning I want to see that presentation. And I'll be recommending you for the senior team position that's opening up." It should have felt like a victory. And it did, sort of. But as I packed my bag and headed for the elevator, all I felt was tired. Tired of fighting. Tired of proving myself. Tired of the constant battle just to be treated like a person. The elevator was empty, a rare blessing during office hours. I stepped in and pressed the button for the ground floor, leaning back against the wall. I pulled out my phone, thinking about texting Appa that I'd be home early, when I heard rushing footsteps. Hold. The elevator. I moved to press the door open button, but I was too slow. Or maybe he was too fast. A hand shot through the closing doors, forcing them back open. Min-suk stumbled in, his face flushed with anger and something else. Something that made my instincts scream danger. The doors closed behind him. We were alone. "You ruined my career," he hissed, backing me into the corner. 5 years I've worked here. 5 years. And you're going to destroy it with your little victim act. I raised my phone, but he slapped it out of my hand. It clattered to the floor, screen cracking. "Can't call for help now, can you? Can't scream. Can't do anything but stand there like the useless mute you are." My heart was racing, but my hands were steady as I signed, "Touch me and you'll regret it." He laughed, an ugly sound. "What are you going to do? Tell on me? Who's going to believe you? You can't even defend yourself properly." He was wrong about that. Appa had made sure I took self-defense classes. Being Omega, being mute, he taught me that the world could be cruel and I needed to be able to protect myself. But we were in an elevator. Confined space. And he was bigger than me, his alpha strength advantage obvious. I was calculating my options when the elevator suddenly stopped. Min-suk had hit the emergency stop button. "Now," he said, and his hand shot out to grab my collar. "Let's see how." I grabbed the coffee cup I'd been holding, lukewarm by now but still caffeinated, and threw it directly in his face. He screamed, hands going to his eyes, and I shoved him hard, going for the elevator panel to restart it. But in his blind rage, Min-suk swung out wildly, hitting me across the face. Pain exploded across my cheekbone. I tasted blood. And I snapped. I grabbed my now empty coffee cup and hurled it at him, then reached for the other cup sitting on the elevator floor. Someone must have left it there. Without thinking, driven purely by fear and fury, I grabbed it and threw it with all my strength just as the elevator doors dinged open. The coffee arced through the air in slow motion, and hit someone standing directly outside the elevator. Someone tall. Someone in an obviously expensive suit. Someone who was definitely not supposed to be on the 32nd floor. Someone who, as I looked up into his face, made my blood turn to ice. Baek-yong. The CEO of JK Enterprises. The man whose picture hung in the lobby. The man whose name people whispered with a mixture of respect and terror. And I had just drenched him in coffee. The hallway, which had been bustling with people leaving for the day, went utterly silent. You could have heard a pin drop. Hell, you could have heard a dust particle land. Baek-yong stood there, coffee dripping from his face, his white shirt stained brown, his expression absolutely unreadable. Behind me, Min-suk whimpered. I wanted to die. Just immediately cease to exist. Maybe if I closed my eyes and wished hard enough, I'd wake up and this would all be a nightmare. But no. When I opened my eyes, Baek-yong was still there, still dripping, still staring at me with those dark, penetrating eyes. His jaw clenched. Then, in a voice that could cut glass, he said, "My office. Both of you. Now." And that was how my entire life changed in the span of 30 seconds. Baek Young's office was on the top floor, naturally. The elevator ride up was the longest 2 minutes of my life. The CO stood in front, his back ramrod straight, coffee still dripping onto the elevator floor. Min-suk and I stood behind him like condemned prisoners, and I swear I could hear my colleagues' teeth chattering. I kept my face neutral, but inside, my mind was racing through every possible scenario. Best case, I got fired. Worst case, I got fired and sued for assault or something equally horrifying. The elevator doors opened to a reception area that screamed wealth and power. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked Seoul, the city sprawling out below like a kingdom. Everything was sleek lines and dark wood, with ambient lighting that probably cost more than my entire year's salary. A woman in a crisp suit, his secretary presumably, looked up and her eyes widened at the state of her boss. "Sir, what?" "Cancel everything," Baek Young said without breaking stride. "And get me a change of clothes from my closet." "Yes, sir." She was already moving, efficient and practiced. We followed him into his office, which was somehow even more impressive than the reception area. One wall was entirely glass, offering a panoramic view of Seoul. The other walls were decorated with modern art that probably belonged in museums. His desk was a massive piece of black marble that looked like it could double as an altar for corporate sacrifices. Baek Young walked behind his desk but didn't sit. He stood there, coffee-stained and radiating danger, and looked at both of us. "Explain. Now." Min-suk immediately started babbling. "Sir, I'm so sorry, this isn't what it looks like. Yubin attacked me in the elevator, he's been unstable all day, I tried to calm him down but..." Baek Young held up one hand, and Min-suk's mouth snapped shut like a trap. "I wasn't asking you yet." He turned those dark eyes on me. "You. What happened?" I pulled out my cracked phone and started typing, but my hands were shaking so badly I kept hitting the wrong keys. I took a breath, steadied myself and tried again. "Park Min-suk has been harassing me for weeks. Today he sabotaged my work. When I reported him, he cornered me in the elevator and attacked me. I defended myself. The coffee was an accident." I showed him the screen. He read it, his expression giving nothing away. Then he extended his hand. "Your phone." I hesitated, then handed it over. He navigated to my camera roll with practiced ease, finding the security footage I'd saved. He watched it in silence, his jaw tightening incrementally with each passing second. When he finished, he looked up at Min-suk. If I thought he'd looked angry before, it was nothing compared to now. "You have 10 seconds to tell me why I shouldn't have security throw you out of this building right now." Min-suk's face went from red to white. "Sir, I can explain." 5 seconds. "He's been difficult to work with, always acting superior, and I just..." 3 seconds. "Please, sir, I have a family, I need this job." "Time's up." Baek Young pressed a button on his desk. "Security, I need you in my office immediately." Min-suk's face crumpled. "Please, Mr. Baek, I'm begging you. You assaulted an employee. You sabotaged company work. You created a hostile work environment." Each word was like a hammer blow. "You're fired. Security will escort you out. If you ever set foot in this building again, I'll have you arrested for trespassing. Get out of my sight." 2 security guards appeared within seconds. They must have been waiting nearby. They grabbed Min-suk by the arms and dragged him out, his protests echoing down the hallway until they faded to nothing. The door closed, leaving me alone with Baek Young. He set my phone down on his desk and finally sat, gesturing for me to take one of the chairs across from him. I did, perching on the edge like a bird ready to flee. For a long moment he just looked at me. Really looked at me, his gaze traveling over my face with an intensity that made me want to squirm. I kept my expression neutral through sheer force of will. "Yubin," he finally said, and I was surprised he knew my name. "Age 25, marketing department, hired 8 months ago. Top performer in your division. Nonverbal due to an undetermined neurological condition." He paused. "And apparently quite good at defending yourself." I didn't know how to respond to that, so I just watched him. "You threw coffee on me." I nodded slowly and reached for my phone. He slid it across the desk to me. I typed, "It was an accident. I apologize." "An accident," he repeated, something that might have been amusement flickering in his eyes. "Do you know how much this suit costs?" I shook my head. "More than 3 months of your salary." I winced and typed again, "I'll pay for the cleaning." "The cleaning won't fix it. It's ruined." He leaned back in his chair, steepling his fingers. "So now we come to the question of your punishment." My stomach dropped. I'd thought, hoped, that since Min-suk was clearly at fault, I might escape without consequences. Apparently not. "I could fire you," he continued, his tone conversational. But you're a good employee and what happened wasn't entirely your fault. However, I can't just let it go. It would set a bad precedent. I waited, my heart pounding. So here's what's going to happen. You're going to work directly under me for the next 3 months. Consider it your punishment and your promotion. I blinked. Typed frantically, work under you? In what capacity? Personal assistant. I need someone organized, detail-oriented, and discreet. You'll manage my schedule, handle correspondence, attend meetings with me. He watched my face. It's long hours, demanding work, and you'll be seeing me every single day. Everything in me wanted to refuse. Working directly with the CEO sounded like a nightmare. More pressure, more scrutiny, more opportunities to mess up spectacularly. But I also knew what punishment could have meant. And this, despite everything, was actually an opportunity. Personal assistant to the CEO looked amazing on a resume. I typed, can I refuse? No, of course not. I typed again, when do I start? For the first time since I doused him in coffee, Baekhyang smiled. It was small, barely there, but it transformed his entire face from intimidating to something else. Something that made my stomach flip in a way that had nothing to do with fear. Monday morning, 7 a.m. Don't be late. I nodded and stood, taking that as my dismissal. I was halfway to the door when he spoke again. You bin. I turned back. That footage you have. Make sure you keep it backed up somewhere safe. And if anyone else gives you trouble, I want to know about it immediately. Understood. I nodded again, surprised by the protective edge in his voice. Good. Have a good weekend. I left his office in a daze, my mind trying to process everything that had just happened. Fired Min-suk. New job. 3 months working directly with Baekhyang, the most ruthless CEO in Seoul. This was either going to be the best thing that ever happened to my career, or it was going to destroy me completely. As the elevator descended, I caught my reflection in the polished doors. There was a bruise forming on my cheekbone where Min-suk had hit me, and my eyes looked shell-shocked. What have I gotten myself into? I signed to my reflection. My reflection wisely had no answer. Monday morning arrived far too quickly. I stood outside JK Enterprises at 6:45 a.m., clutching a coffee carrier with 2 cups. One for me, one for Baekhyang. It seemed like the least I could do after destroying his suit. I'd spent the entire weekend alternating between panic and research, learning everything I could about my new boss. Baekhyang, age 32, alpha, self-made billionaire. He'd taken over his family's struggling textile company at 25 and transformed it into a multinational conglomerate within 7 years. He was known for being ruthless in business, demanding with employees, and completely uninterested in the social aspects of being a CEO. No charity galas, no celebrity friendships, no scandals. Just work, expansion, and profit. The tabloids called him the Ice Wolf. Cold, predatory, and impossible to approach. And I was about to spend 3 months as his personal assistant. Brilliant you been. Just brilliant. I took the elevator to the top floor, my palms sweating despite the cool morning air. The secretary from Friday, her nameplate read Han Jiwoo, was already at her desk, looking impeccable at this ungodly hour. You bin, she greeted me with a professional smile. Mr. Beck is expecting you. You can go right in. I nodded, set one coffee on her desk with a questioning look. She looked surprised but smiled genuinely. Thank you. That's very thoughtful. I returned the smile and knocked on Baekhyang's door. Come in. He was already at his desk, surrounded by documents and multiple computer screens. He'd clearly been there for a while. He looked up as I entered, and I was struck again by how attractive he was. Sharp features, intense eyes, the kind of presence that commanded attention without effort. He was wearing another suit, this one charcoal gray, perfectly tailored to his broad shoulders and lean frame. Everything about him screamed power and control. I held up the coffee cup with a small, apologetic smile. Something flickered in his eyes, surprise, maybe amusement. Trying to make amends? I nodded and set it on his desk, then pulled out my phone. Peace offering. I promise this one won't end up on you. The corner of his mouth twitched. I'll hold you to that. He took a sip, then nodded approvingly. Black, no sugar. How did you know? I typed. I did my research. You take your coffee the same way you run your business, straightforward and bitter. This time he actually laughed, a short, surprised sound that made my stomach do that weird flip again. Clever. He gestured to a smaller desk that had been set up perpendicular to his, positioned so I'd be facing him while working. That's your station. I need you to go through these contracts. He pushed a stack of folders toward me, and flag anything that looks unusual or unfavorable. I also need you to reorganize my calendar for the next 2 weeks. Jiwoo will give you the login information. I nodded and settled at my new desk. The chair was ergonomic and probably cost more than my monthly rent. Everything was top of the line, from the computer to the lamp to the pen holder. One more thing. I looked up. If you need something, don't hesitate to ask. And if I'm doing something that makes your job harder, tell me. I need efficiency, and that requires clear communication. He paused. I know sign language, by the way. Basic level, but I can understand simple phrases. You don't always have to type everything out. I stared at him, shocked. He knew sign language? He caught my expression, and something that might have been amusement crossed his face. My younger cousin is deaf. I learned to communicate with him. He turned back to his computer. Now let's get to work. The first week was intense. Baek-young worked like a machine. Meetings from 7 a.m. to 8 p.m., phone calls during lunch, emails answered at midnight. He expected the same. Dedication from me, and I gave it. I reorganized his disaster of a filing system, streamlined his calendar, caught 3 errors in contracts that would have cost the company millions, and learned to anticipate his needs before he asked. It was exhausting. It was exhilarating. And it was comfortable somehow. Baek-young didn't treat me like I was fragile or broken. He didn't speak slowly or over-enunciate. He didn't avoid eye contact or act uncomfortable around me. He just treated me like a competent professional. It was refreshing. On Friday afternoon, we were reviewing a proposal when his phone rang. He glanced at the screen and his expression darkened. I need to take this. He stood and walked to the window, his voice dropping low. Mother. I told you I'm not interested. No. Because I don't have time for. I focused on my work, trying not to eavesdrop, but I couldn't help catching fragments. Something about a matchmaking meeting, an Omega from a good family, his duty to produce an heir. I'll choose my own mate when I'm ready, Baek-young said coldly. Stop interfering in my life. He hung up without saying goodbye and stood there for a moment, tension radiating from his shoulders. Then he rolled them back, visibly composing himself, and returned to his desk. Where were we? I pointed to the paragraph we'd been discussing, but I also typed a quick message. Are you okay? He looked at me, surprise flickering across his face again. I'm fine. Just family being family. I nodded but signed without thinking. Family can be the most difficult people to deal with. They know exactly which buttons to push. He watched my hands, then met my eyes. Exactly. Pause. Your father? The one who? I was surprised he remembered that detail from my file. I nodded and signed. I haven't seen him since I was 3 months old. His loss. His loss, Baek-young repeated softly, and something in his tone made my chest tighten. Any man who couldn't see your worth is a fool. The compliment caught me off guard. I felt heat rise to my cheeks and quickly looked back at my computer screen, typing randomly to cover my confusion. When I glanced back up, Baek-young was watching me with an expression I couldn't quite read. Then he cleared his throat and returned to the proposal. Let's finish this. I have a dinner meeting at 7. But the atmosphere had shifted somehow, become charged with something I didn't want to name. Week 2, things started to change. It was small things at first. Baek-young started asking my opinion on matters beyond just contracts and schedules. He'd pause during meetings to make sure I could see everyone's faces for lip reading. He made sure I took lunch breaks even when he didn't. And he smiled more. Not big smiles, but small ones, usually when I did something that amused him. Like the time I reorganized his desk while he was in a meeting, and he came back to find everything color-coded and labeled. Did you alphabetize my pens? He asked, picking up a blue pen from the B section. I signed quickly. You're welcome. Efficiency is beauty. He laughed, actually laughed, and shook his head. You're ridiculous. I grinned and signed. You mean brilliant. That too, he admitted, and the way he looked at me made my heart skip. Or the time his mother sent an Omega to the office. Apparently she'd ignored his rejection and set up a surprise meeting. The Omega was beautiful, elegant, everything society expected. She smiled sweetly at Baek-young and completely ignored me. Mr. Baek, your mother told me so much about you. I'd love to get dinner sometime. Baek-young's expression was pure ice. I'm not interested. Please leave. She blinked, clearly not used to rejection. But your mother said. My mother doesn't make my decisions. He gestured to me without looking away from her. And I'm already seeing someone. My head whipped around so fast I nearly got whiplash. What? The Omega looked at me, her expression turning sour. Him? But he's perfect, Baek-young interrupted smoothly. Now, if you'll excuse us, we have work to do. He basically escorted her out, then returned to his desk as if nothing had happened. I was staring at him, my mind reeling. He caught my look and raised an eyebrow. What? I typed furiously. You told her we're seeing each other? It was the most efficient way to get rid of her. But there was something in his eyes, something intense and unguarded for just a moment. Unless that makes you uncomfortable. Did it? I didn't know. My heart was racing, but not from discomfort. From something else entirely. I typed slowly, "Just warn me next time you're going to use me as your fake boyfriend." "Boyfriend?" he repeated, and his smile was dangerous. "I'll keep that in mind." Week 3 I started noticing things I shouldn't. Like how Baekhyang's hair fell across his forehead when he leaned over documents. How his hands moved when he typed, long fingers flying across the keyboard. How his voice dropped when he was tired, becoming rougher, deeper. How he looked at me sometimes when he thought I wasn't paying attention. I caught him once, late on a Thursday evening. We were alone in the office, everyone else had gone home. I was stretching, arching my back after hours of sitting, and when I looked over, his eyes were on me. Dark. Hungry. He looked away immediately, jaw clenching. "It's late. You should go home." But I didn't want to go home. That was the problem. I wanted to stay here in this space we created where I felt seen and valued and wanted. I typed, "You're still working." "I'll stay." "You been." I met his eyes steadily and signed, "I'm not leaving you alone." Something shifted in his expression. Softened. "You're stubborn." I grinned and signed, "You're just now noticing?" He stood and walked over to my desk, and suddenly he was close, so close I could smell his cologne, cedar and something darker, more primal. His alpha scent, carefully controlled but there. "I've noticed a lot of things about you," he said quietly. My breath caught. I looked up at him, and the intensity in his eyes made my Omega instincts surge. "Submit, please, accept." I pushed them down. I wasn't that kind of Omega. "Like what?" I signed, my hands shaky. "Like how you bite your lip when you're concentrating. How you drum your fingers when you're thinking. How you tilt your head when you're reading lips." He reached out slowly, giving me time to move away, and gently touched the fading bruise on my cheekbone. "How you're stronger than anyone gives you credit for." I couldn't breathe. Couldn't think. His touch was electric. "Mr. Beck." "Yang," he interrupted softly. "When we're alone, call me Yang." I couldn't call him anything. But I signed his name, the letters shaky, YNG. His eyes darkened further. "The way you sign, it's beautiful. You're beautiful." This wasn't professional. This was crossing every line. I should step back, create distance. Instead, I stayed exactly where I was. "I should go." I signed, but I didn't move. "You should," he agreed, but his hand was still on my face, thumb brushing my cheekbone. "But I don't want you to." "This is a bad idea," I signed. "Terrible idea," he agreed. We stared at each other, the air between us crackling with tension. Then his phone rang, shattering the moment. He stepped back, running a hand through his hair, and answered it with a curt, "What?" I grabbed my bag with shaking hands and practically fled to the elevator. That weekend, I couldn't stop thinking about him. About his touch. His words. The way he'd looked at me like I was something precious. Appa noticed my distraction over dinner. "You've been signing to yourself all day," he said, amused. "What's on your mind?" I hesitated, then signed, "There's someone at work." His eyebrows rose. "Someone? Tell me." So I did. I told him about Baekhyang, about the coffee incident, about working as his assistant. About how he treated me like an equal. About Thursday night. When I finished, Appa was quiet for a long moment. Then he signed, "Do you like him?" "I don't know. Maybe." "Yes." "Does he like you?" "I think so. But it's complicated. He's my boss. And he's an alpha, I'm an omega. You know how society is." Appa reached across the table and took my hands. You have spent your entire life proving that you're more than what people assume. Don't let fear stop you from being happy." "But what if?" "What if it works out?" he interrupted. "What if he's the one who finally sees all of you and loves what he sees? Isn't that worth the risk?" I didn't have an answer. But Monday morning when I walked into Baekhyang's office and he looked up with that small smile that was just for me, I thought maybe Appa was right. Maybe it was worth the risk. The next 2 weeks were torture. Baekhyang, Yang, as I was trying to think of him when we were alone, maintained perfect professional boundaries during the day. But the tension was always there, simmering under the surface. Every accidental touch felt electric. Every shared glance lasted a moment too long. I caught him watching me constantly now. When I was reading documents, when I was typing, when I was just existing in his space. His gaze felt like a physical touch, making my skin heat and my omega instincts purr with satisfaction. But he never crossed the line again. Never touched me like he had that Thursday night. It was driving me insane. And apparently, I was driving him insane too, though I didn't realize it until everything exploded. It was a Friday night, nearly 10 p.m. We'd been working on a merger deal for 12 hours straight and I was exhausted. But Yang wanted to finalize one more contract before the weekend, and I'd learned that when he got focused like this, nothing could stop him. This clause needs to be restructured, he muttered, more to himself than to me. The liability terms are too vague. I nodded, though I was barely processing his words anymore. I just wanted to go home, take a shower, and sleep for approximately 16 hours. But more than that, I wanted to go clubbing. My friends had been begging me to join them, and I'd canceled the last 3 times because of work. Because Yang always had just one more thing that kept me in the office late. I loved my job. I loved working with him. But I was 25 years old, and I deserved to have a life outside this office. The thought made frustration bubble up in my chest. Before I could stop myself, my hands were moving, signing rapidly. For fuck's sake, can we please just finish this tomorrow? I have plans tonight, and I'm tired of sacrificing my entire life for your workaholic tendencies. You might not need sleep or social interaction, but I do. So can we please just call it a night? The signs were sharp, aggressive, matching my irritation perfectly. I'd been holding it in for weeks, and it all came pouring out. When I finished, I looked up to find Yang staring at me. His expression was unreadable, but his eyes were intense, almost black. The office fell silent except for the hum of computers. Then he stood, slowly, deliberately, and walked around his desk toward me. There was something predatory in his movements, something that made my Omega instincts flare with a confusing mix of caution and excitement. You think I don't understand sign language? He said, his voice dangerously soft. My stomach dropped. Oh no. You think I've been pretending not to understand when you curse at me, complain about me, insult me under your breath? Oh no, oh no, oh no. He stopped directly in front of me, close enough that I had to tilt my head back to meet his eyes. Close enough that his scent surrounded me, cedar and alpha and something wild. I understand every word you've been. Every single word. I couldn't move. Couldn't breathe. Do you know how many times you've called me an asshole? A workaholic? A control freak? He leaned down, his hands bracing on the arms of my chair, caging me in. How many times you've cursed at me in sign language, thinking I couldn't understand? Heat flooded my face. I wanted to melt into the chair and disappear. I'm sorry, I signed weakly. I didn't mean. You meant every word, he interrupted, and his face was inches from mine now. And do you know what the worst part is? I shook my head, my heart hammering. The worst part is that I've been keeping you here, making you work late, finding excuses to keep you close because I'm head over heels for you and I can't stand the thought of you leaving. His voice dropped even lower, almost a growl. I've been torturing myself for weeks, trying to maintain professional boundaries, trying not to touch you, trying not to kiss that smart mouth of yours every time you sign something sarcastic at me. My mind went blank. What? You want to go clubbing? Fine. Go. His eyes were blazing now. Go dance with strangers. Let other alphas scent you. Let them think they have a chance. There was possession in his voice, jealousy, and it made something in me respond viscerally. But know this, you bin. He reached up and cupped my face, his thumb brushing my lips. I've been holding back because I wanted to be professional. Because I wanted to do this right. But I'm done holding back. And then he kissed me. It wasn't gentle. It wasn't sweet. It was rough, demanding, claiming, everything that had been building between us for weeks unleashed in one explosive moment. His lips crashed against mine, his hands sliding into my hair to hold me in place. I gasped, and he took advantage, deepening the kiss, his tongue sweeping into my mouth with devastating skill. I should push him away. This was my boss. This was inappropriate. This was absolutely incredible. My hands fisted in his shirt, pulling him closer instead of pushing him away. A small sound escaped my throat, the only sound I could make, and he groaned in response, the kiss growing even more intense. He tasted like coffee and possession and everything I'd been craving without admitting it. When he finally pulled back, we were both breathing hard. His pupils were blown wide, his lips slightly swollen, his carefully controlled composure completely shattered. That's your punishment, he said roughly, for cursing at me when you thought I couldn't understand. I stared at him, dazed, my lips still tingling. Then his expression softened slightly, became more vulnerable. I've wanted to do that since the day you threw coffee on me and glared at me like I was inconveniencing you by existing. You looked so fierce, so unapologetic. He traced my jawline with his thumb. Do you know how rare that is? Someone who isn't intimidated by me? Someone who treats me like a person instead of a title. I finally found my hands again, signing shakily. You kissed me. I did. You said that you? Head over heels for you, he finished. Yes. These past months with you in my office, watching you work, watching you think, watching you exist, you've cracked something open inside me that I didn't even know was there. He straightened slightly but didn't move away. I don't want casual you bin. I don't want temporary. I want to claim you properly, court you, make you mine in every way that matters. His eyes locked with mine. And I know it's fast, I know it's complicated, but I don't care. I want you. Not as my assistant. As my omega. As my mate. The word mate sent a shiver through me. That was permanent. That was everything. This is insane, I signed. Completely insane, he agreed. You're my boss. I'll transfer you to another department if that's what it takes. People will talk. Let them. He leaned in again, his forehead resting against mine. I'm not asking for an answer right now. I know this is overwhelming. But I needed you to know. I needed you to understand that every late night, every excuse to keep you here, it wasn't about work. It was because I couldn't bear to let you go. My mind was spinning. This was everything I'd been wanting but hadn't let myself acknowledge. Everything I'd been afraid to hope for. I need time, I signed finally. To process this. To think. Take all the time you need. He stepped back, running a hand through his hair, and for the first time since I'd met him, he looked uncertain. Vulnerable. But know that I mean every word. I want you, Yubin. Not despite your silence, because of everything you are. I stood on shaky legs and grabbed my bag. I needed space. Distance. But at the door I turned back. He was standing by his desk, watching me with an expression that made my heart ache. I signed quickly. For the record, I've been head over heels for you too. It terrifies me. His expression transformed, hope, joy, desire all flooding his face at once. Then be terrified with me, he said softly. I left before I could do something stupid like run back and kiss him again. But as I rode the elevator down, my fingers touched my lips and I smiled. Maybe some risks were worth taking after all. I didn't go clubbing that night. Instead, I went home, told Appa everything, and spent the entire weekend in a state of confused euphoria. My lips still tingled with the memory of Yang's kiss. My mind kept replaying his words. I want you. As my omega. As my mate. Appa was thrilled, of course. He'd been waiting for me to find someone who saw past my silence to the person underneath. But he also warned me to be careful, to make sure this was real and not just alpha possessiveness. Some alphas see omegas as prizes, he signed. Make sure he sees you as a partner. But I'd worked with Yang for weeks now. I'd seen how he treated people, how he valued competence and intelligence over designation or status. He wasn't that kind of alpha. Still, Monday morning arrived with a knot of anxiety in my stomach. I arrived at 6:50 a.m., earlier than usual. Jiwoo wasn't even at her desk yet. I knocked on Yang's door, heard his come in, and stepped inside. He looked up from his computer and the moment our eyes met, the air shifted. Charge. Electric. You're early, he said, his voice carefully neutral. I set down 2 coffee cups, our Monday morning ritual, and pulled out my phone. We need to talk. His expression remained composed, but I saw tension in his shoulders. All right. I sat across from him, not at my usual desk but in the visitor's chair, creating a clear separation between professional and personal space. My fingers flew as I typed. I've been thinking all weekend. About what you said. About what you want. He waited, patient, giving me the space to express myself. I'm not afraid of you being an alpha or of what people will say. I've spent my whole life dealing with people's assumptions and judgments. What scares me is how much I want this too. How much I want you. It's intense and fast and completely illogical. I paused, gathering courage, then continued, but I've also learned to trust my instincts. And every instinct I have says that you're real. That this is real. So if you're serious about claiming me, about courting me properly, then I'm saying yes. I want to try. The transformation in his face was immediate. The careful control shattered, replaced by pure joy and relief. He stood and came around the desk, pulling me to my feet. You mean it? His hands cupped my face, thumbs stroking my cheekbones. You're saying yes? I nodded, then signed, I'm saying yes. But I have conditions. A smile curved his lips. Of course you do. Tell me. First, I need to transfer to another department. I meant what I said. I won't be your assistant while we're together. It's a conflict of interest. Done. I'll have you transferred to the creative director position in marketing. It's been open for a month, you're perfect for it, and it puts you on a different floor. I blinked. Creative director was a massive promotion. You can't just. You earned it. I've been considering it for weeks, I just didn't want you to think I was using it as leverage. His expression grew serious. Everything I offer you professionally, you've earned. I will never mix business with our personal relationship that way. That settled something in me. Okay. Second condition, we take this slow. I know you said you want to claim me, but I need time to adjust. To be sure. As slow as you need. His thumb traced my lower lip and heat pooled in my stomach. Though I reserve the right to court you aggressively. I grinned and signed, I'd expect nothing less. Third condition, no hiding. If we're doing this, we're doing it openly. I won't be anyone's secret. Something fierce and possessive flared in his eyes. Trust me, the last thing I want is to hide you. I want everyone to know you're mine. The growl in his voice made my Omega instincts purr. Then we have an agreement. We have an agreement. He leaned down, and this time when he kissed me it was softer. Sweeter. A promise instead of a claim. When he pulled back, he rested his forehead against mine. I'm going to do this right, Yubin. Flowers, dates, proper courtship. I'm going to make you so happy you'll never doubt that you made the right choice. I signed against his chest. Just don't make me work late every night. I still want a life outside of you. He laughed. Deal. Though I make no promises about weekends. Yang? What? I didn't say what we'd be doing on weekends. His smile was wicked and heat flooded my face. You're impossible. You like it? I did. God help me, I really did. True to his word, Yang courted me properly. He sent flowers to my new office, gorgeous arrangements that made my co-workers whisper and speculate. He took me to expensive restaurants where he'd reserved private rooms so we could eat without people staring. He learned more sign language, practicing until he could hold entire conversations with me without me needing to type. He met Appa, which was terrifying and wonderful. Appa interrogated him for 2 hours, asking everything from his intentions to his 5-year plan to his thoughts on Omega rights. Yang answered every question honestly, patiently, and by the end of the night Appa was signing to me, I like him. He sees you. Really sees you. We went to art galleries and movies with subtitles. We stayed up late talking. Him speaking, me signing, both of us learning each other's rhythms. He told me about his childhood, about building his company from nothing, about the loneliness of success. I told him about growing up silent in a loud world. About my beta father's rejection and my omega father's unwavering love. About every person who'd ever underestimated me and how I'd proven them wrong. You're the strongest person I've ever met, he said one night as we sat on his penthouse balcony, overlooking Seoul's glittering skyline. Not despite your silence. Because of everything you've overcome. I kissed him then, pouring everything I couldn't say into the press of my lips against his. We kept things chaste for weeks. Kisses, touches, but nothing more. Yang was adamant about taking it slow, about making sure I was comfortable. But I was more than comfortable. I was burning. Every kiss left me wanting more. Every touch made me ache. My omega instincts were screaming at me to submit, to accept, to mate. But I wanted him to make the first move. Wanted him to lose control the way I was losing it. That finally happened on our 2-month anniversary. He'd taken me to his penthouse for dinner. He'd cooked, which was adorable and impressive. We'd eaten on the balcony, drinking wine and watching the sunset. When we moved inside, he pulled me onto his couch and we kissed lazily, his hands respectful even as his kiss grew more heated. I'd had enough of respectful. I shifted, straddling his lap, and his hands automatically went to my hips. His eyes widened. Yubin. I signed quickly. I don't want slow anymore. I want you. All of you. His grip on my hips tightened. Are you sure? Because once I start, I won't be able to stop. Good. Don't stop. Something snapped in him. His control shattered completely. He kissed me hard, possessive, his hands sliding under my shirt to touch bare skin. I gasped against his mouth, arching into his touch. Heat flooded through me, slick already starting to form. My body's natural response to alpha pheromones. Bedroom, he growled against my lips. Now. He carried me to his bedroom, setting me down beside his massive bed. The room was dark except for the city lights filtering through floor-to-ceiling windows, casting everything in shadow and silver. Tell me if I do anything you don't like, he said, his hands gentle even as his eyes burned with desire. We can stop anytime. I shook my head and signed, don't stop. Please don't stop. He groaned and pulled my shirt over my head, then his own. I'd seen him in suits every day for months, but seeing him bare-chested was entirely different. He was all lean muscle and golden skin, beautiful in a way that made my mouth go dry. He laid me back on the bed, following me down, his weight delicious and perfect. His hands explored my body with reverence, learning every curve, every sensitive spot. When his mouth followed the path of his hands, I made that small sound again, the only vocalization I could manage, and it seemed to drive him wild. I love that sound, he murmured against my skin. I'm going to make you make it over and over. He did. His mouth and hands worked magic, building pleasure until I was shaking, until slick was soaking through my clothes, until I was signing desperate, incoherent things. When he finally removed the rest of our clothing, I was beyond ready. My Omega instincts were screaming, demanding, begging for his knot, his claim, his everything. You're so beautiful, he breathed, settling between my thighs. So perfect. Mine. I nodded frantically. Yours. Always yours. The first press of him inside me was overwhelming, pleasure and stretch in perfect fullness. He moved slowly, carefully, watching my face for any sign of discomfort. But there was no discomfort. Only pleasure, building and building as he moved, as our bodies learned each other's rhythms. His scent surrounded me, cedar and alpha and home. My slick eased every movement, made everything smooth and hot and perfect. You been, he groaned, his control fraying. I'm close. Where? I wrapped my legs around his waist and signed emphatically, inside. Not me. Claim me. His eyes went black. You're sure? That's permanent. I know. I want it. I want you. That was all he needed. His pace increased, harder, deeper, hitting spots that made stars burst behind my eyes. Pleasure built and built until I was drowning in it, until I shattered completely, my body clenching around him. He followed seconds later with a roar, his knots swelling and locking us together as he claimed me. Completely. His teeth found my neck, and the bite, claiming, marking, permanent, sent me over the edge again. We were locked together, bound in every way that mattered. Mates. As we lay tangled together, waiting for his knot to recede, he pressed soft kisses to my face, my neck, my shoulders. I love you, he whispered. I love you so much. I signed it back against his chest. I love you too. And for the first time in my life, my silence didn't feel like a lack. It felt like peace. Because he heard me anyway. And the award for Creative Campaign of the Year goes to You Bin JK Enterprises. The applause was deafening as I stood, my heart pounding. I walked to the stage, very aware of Young in the audience, his eyes shining with pride. I accepted the crystal trophy and turned to face the crowd. The moderator handed me a microphone, then seemed to remember and looked embarrassed. I smiled and pulled out my phone, typing quickly. The words appeared on the large screen behind me. Thank you for this incredible honor. I've spent my life being underestimated because of my silence. But silence doesn't mean empty. It doesn't mean less than. This award is for everyone who's ever been told they can't because they're different. You can. You will. Never let anyone make you feel small. The applause was even louder this time. As I left the stage, I caught Yang's eye. He signed, so proud of you. I signed back, I know. You tell me every day. His grin was pure joy. Later in our penthouse, he pulled me into his arms. Creative director, award winner, the love of my life. He murmured against my hair. You're amazing. I pulled back and signed, You're not so bad yourself, Mr. Seo. Just, not so bad? He nipped at my claiming mark playfully. I think I need to remind you exactly how not bad I am. I laughed silently, then signed, Promises, promises. Oh, it's a promise. He picked me up, carrying me toward our bedroom, and I thought about how far I'd come. From the mute Omega who couldn't even get people to take him seriously, to creative director with a mate who loved every part of me. My silence would always be part of me. But it didn't define me. It never had. What defined me was everything I'd built despite it. And the love I'd found with someone who heard me even without words. As Yang laid me on our bed, his eyes full of love and desire, I signed one more thing. I'm happy. So happy. Good, he whispered, kissing me softly. Because I plan to spend the rest of our lives making you even happier. And he did. The award ceremony after party was still going strong when Yang leaned down and whispered in my ear, his breath hot against my skin, Let's go home. I want you all to myself. A shiver ran through me. Even after a year of being mated, his voice still affected me like this, making my Omega instincts purr with satisfaction, making heat pool low in my belly. I nodded, and within minutes we were in his car, our car, heading back to the penthouse. His hand rested possessively on my thigh the entire drive, occasionally squeezing, his touch promising everything that was coming. The city lights blurred past the windows, but I only had eyes for him. My mate. My alpha. The man who'd taken my silent world and filled it with so much love I sometimes felt like I'd burst from it. You were incredible tonight, he said, glancing at me with those dark eyes that still made my heart skip. Watching you on that stage, so confident, so beautiful, I wanted to stand up and tell everyone there that you're mine. I grinned and signed, You're so possessive. Only with you. His hand slid higher on my thigh and my breath hitched. Only with things that matter. By the time we reached the penthouse, I was already slick, already aching. Yang's scent had grown stronger in the car, cedar and alpha and pure desire, and my body responded instinctively. The elevator ride to the top floor felt endless. The moment the doors closed, he pulled me against him, kissing me hard, possessive, claiming. His hands were everywhere, in my hair, on my waist, sliding down to grip my ass. Mine, he growled against my lips. My brilliant, perfect Omega. I melted into him, signing against his chest. Yours. Always yours. When we finally stumbled into the penthouse, we were already half undressed. My shirt was gone, his tie was somewhere in the elevator, and we were both breathing hard. He picked me up effortlessly. I loved when he did that, loved feeling his strength, and carried me straight to our bedroom. The floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked Seoul's glittering skyline. The city spread out below us like a kingdom. But I wasn't looking at the view. I was looking at him as he set me down on our bed, his eyes dark with desire and love and possession. I'm going to worship every inch of you tonight, he said, his voice rough. Going to make you feel exactly how proud I am, how much I love you. My hands trembled as I signed, then stop talking and show me. His smile was pure predator. As you wish. He started with my neck, kissing and licking the claiming mark he'd left there a year ago. The scar was permanent, visible, a declaration to the world that I belonged to someone. That I was loved, wanted, claimed. Every touch of his lips to that mark sent electricity straight to my core. Slick was already soaking through my pants, my Omega body preparing itself for him. So responsive, he murmured, his hands sliding down to remove the rest of my clothing. I love how your body reacts to me. Love these little sounds you make. I made that sound then, that small vocalization, almost a whimper, and he groaned in response. Yes, just like that. Let me hear you, baby. He kissed down my chest, stopping to pay attention to each sensitive spot he'd mapped over months of learning my body. His tongue circled one nipple, then the other, his teeth grazing just enough to make me arch off the bed. My hands clutched at the sheets, overwhelmed by sensation. After a year together, you'd think I'd be used to this, but every time felt new, felt overwhelming, felt perfect. His mouth traveled lower, kissing across my stomach, my hip bones, everywhere except where I desperately needed him. Yang, I signed frantically. Please. Please what? His breath ghosted over my arousal, making me shudder. Tell me what you want. You know what I want. Maybe. But I like seeing you ask for it. His smile was wicked as he pressed a kiss to my inner thigh, so close but not close enough. I grabbed his hair and signed with my other hand, stop teasing and touch me before I die from frustration. He laughed, the sound vibrating through me. So demanding. I love it. Then his mouth was on me and coherent thought disappeared. Intimate content, maintaining romantic intensity while being AI appropriate. His mouth worked magic, his tongue and lips driving me absolutely insane. Pleasure built in waves, each one stronger than the last. My hands alternated between clutching the sheets and threading through his hair, holding him exactly where I needed him. The small sounds I could make escaped freely now, whimpers and gasps that seemed to encourage him, make him more enthusiastic. His hands gripped my thighs, holding me open, holding me still as he took me apart piece by piece. Yang, I'm going to. But he pulled back just before I tipped over the edge and I actually growled at him, another one of those small sounds, making him chuckle. Not yet, he said, crawling back up my body. When you come, I want to be inside you. Want to feel you clench around me. He was still mostly dressed, which seemed incredibly unfair. I signed rapidly, close. Now. Impatient. You spent 10 minutes teasing me. And I'd do it again. But he stripped off the rest of his clothing, and I drank in the sight of him. A year later, and he still took my breath away, all lean muscle and golden skin, beautiful in a way that seemed almost unfair. And hard for me. Always for me. He settled between my thighs, and the first press of him against my entrance made us both groan. Slick eased the way, made everything smooth and hot and perfect. He pushed in slowly, carefully, even though we both knew I could take it. Still so tight, he breathed, his control clearly fraying. Still so perfect. When he was fully seated inside me, we both paused, savoring the connection. This feeling of being completely full, completely claimed, completely his, never got old. I love you, he whispered, beginning to move. Love you so much, Yubin. I signed it back, my hands shaky. Love you too. So much. He started with slow, deep thrusts that hit every perfect spot inside me. His hands gripped my hips, angling me exactly how he wanted, and I let him, trusted him completely to take care of me. The pleasure built steadily, a warm pressure in my core that grew with each movement. His scent surrounded me, overwhelming my senses in the best way. Cedar and alpha and home and mine. Faster, I signed desperately. Harder. Please. Anything you want. His pace increased, deeper, harder, exactly what I needed. Anything for you. The sound of skin against skin filled the room, mixed with our breathing and the small sounds I couldn't contain. Sweat slicked our bodies, made everything slide and slip perfectly. Touch yourself, he commanded, his voice rough. Want to see you fall apart. I obeyed, my hand wrapping around my arousal, stroking in time with his thrusts. The dual sensation was almost too much, pleasure from inside and outside, building and building until I was shaking with it. That's it, baby. So beautiful like this. So perfect. His thrusts grew erratic, his knot beginning to swell. Going to knot you. Going to fill you up. Mark you inside and out. The possessive words, the feeling of his knot pressing against my entrance, the overwhelming pleasure, it all crashed over me at once. I came with a silent scream, my body clenching around him rhythmically, pleasure whiting out everything else. He followed seconds later, his knot swelling fully and locking us together as he came deep inside me. His teeth found my claiming mark again, biting down, not hard enough to break skin, but enough to send another wave of pleasure through me. We collapsed together, locked and panting, and he rolled us so I was sprawled on top of him instead of being crushed. Perfect, he murmured, his hands stroking up and down my back soothingly. You're always so perfect. I rested my head on his chest, listening to his heartbeat slowly return to normal. His knot would keep us locked together for at least 20 minutes, but I didn't mind. These moments after, wrapped in his arms, connected in every way, were some of my favorites. As my breathing calmed, as the pleasure faded to warm satisfaction, I felt something strange. A tickle in my throat. A pressure building. I'd felt this before, occasionally over the past few months. Usually I ignored it. 25 years of silence had taught me not to hope. But tonight, wrapped in love and satisfaction and safety, something felt different. The pressure built, and without meaning to, without even thinking about it, a sound emerged. Not my usual small whimper. Something more. Something that shaped itself into a syllable. What, Yang? The sound was barely audible, rough and unpracticed, but it was there. It was real. I froze. So did Yang. Then his hands tightened on me and he shifted so he could see my face. His expression was shocked, hopeful, almost fearful, like he was afraid to believe what he'd heard. Did you just... He couldn't even finish the sentence. My throat felt tight, strange. I swallowed and tried again, forcing the sound out. Yang. It was louder this time. Clear. My voice, rusty from decades of disuse but unmistakably mine. Tears filled his eyes. You been. Say it again. Please. Yang, I managed, and this time it came easier. Still rough, still quiet, but there. My alpha. He made a sound between a laugh and a sob, pulling me up to kiss me desperately. When he pulled back, his face was wet with tears. Your voice, he whispered. I heard your voice. How what? I didn't know. I pulled back slightly, touching my throat in wonder. The doctors had never found a reason for my mutism. Maybe there had never been a physical cause. Maybe it had been psychological. Trauma from my father's rejection, from growing up unwanted. Maybe I just needed to feel safe enough, loved enough, to let my voice emerge. I tried again. Love you. The words were halting, unpracticed, but they were there. And judging by the way Yang's face crumpled, by the way he held me tighter, they were perfect. I love you too, he said, his voice thick with emotion. So much. So fucking much. We stayed like that, locked together physically and emotionally as I experimented with my new, old, ability. I couldn't speak fluently yet. The words came slowly, roughly, like learning to walk after years of being still. But they came. Happy, I managed, stroking his face. So, happy. Me too, baby. Me too. He kissed my forehead, my cheeks, my lips. We'll work on it together, okay? Speech therapy, practice, whatever you need. No pressure, no rush. Even if you never speak another word, I love you exactly as you are. That made me emotional. I buried my face in his neck and he held me as I cried. Happy tears, overwhelmed tears, tears of relief and joy and love. Thank you, I finally whispered against his skin. For seeing me. Always seeing me. Always, he promised. I'll always see you, hear you, love you. Voice or no voice, you're the other half of my soul. His knot finally began to recede, but neither of us moved. We stayed tangled together, whispering and signing as I tested my voice and he encouraged every sound. My name, he said softly. Say my full name. I took a breath and tried. Beck? Yang. His smile was radiant. Beautiful. You're beautiful. You. Bin? I said, pointing to myself. The love of my life, he agreed. I laughed then, actually laughed, a small rusty sound that made us both freeze in wonder. Then we were both laughing and crying, holding each other as joy overwhelmed us. Over the following months, my voice slowly emerged more fully. It was hard work. Speech therapy, practice, frustration when words wouldn't come. But Yang was there for every struggle, every small victory. Some days I spoke. Some days I signed. Often I did both, my hands moving even as words formed. The media went crazy when word got out. Miracle recovery, they called it. Love conquers all. But it wasn't a miracle. It was safety. It was love. It was finally being seen and valued for exactly who I was. Appa cried the first time I spoke to him. "You Bin," he'd sighed through his tears, "my precious son. Your voice is beautiful." "Like yours," I'd said, and we'd held each other and cried. 6 months later, I stood in Yang's office. Now that I'd transferred departments, I occasionally visited and watched him work. He was on a phone call, his voice sharp and professional as he negotiated some deal. When he hung up and looked at me, though, his expression softened completely. "What brings you here?" he asked, smiling. "Miss me already? I've been practicing all day for this." I took a breath and said, clearly and confidently, "I love you, Baekhyang. You gave me my voice, but more than that, you gave me a reason to use it." The pen he'd been holding dropped from his fingers. He stood slowly, walking around his desk to pull me into his arms. "Say it again," he whispered. "I love you. Again. I love you. I'll never get tired of hearing that." He kissed me softly. "You know what this means, right?" I raised an eyebrow questioningly. His smile turned wicked. "It means tonight I get to hear you scream my name." Heat flooded through me. "Is that a promise?" "Oh, it's definitely a promise." And later that night, tangled in our sheets with the city lights painting everything silver, he kept that promise. When I came apart in his arms, my voice, rough and perfect in mine, cried out his name. And the sound of it, the proof of everything we'd overcome together, made him hold me tighter. "I love your voice," he whispered afterward, stroking my hair. "But I loved you before it too. Voice or silence, you're everything to me." "I know," I said softly, then signed for emphasis, "I know." Because that was the real miracle. Not that I'd learned to speak again, but that I'd found someone who heard me even when I couldn't.